What's up? What it do, man? It's the Supreme Part 2 for those who don't know or wasn't hip to some of the things that went on with Kenneth Supreme McGriff. So I'm gonna just pick straight up off where I left off yesterday. I got a nice little reaction, a nice following. People supported that video. However, I was trying to promote Supreme's his project and his documentary. So I used over and over and over again visuals from that to promote it since I was talking about him. And I think some of the visuals had too much of the game in it, from the narcotics to the violence. So uh, they didn't even let that one slide. But that's cool with me because I really didn't do that one to really cash in on no YouTube money. I wanted some of my young guys that was asking me about Preem to know what it was. So let's just jump straight back into it. Once again, I ain't even giving you my journalism, my research on it. I probably will do it when I go into how they railroaded them. But right now, I'm coming from this joint right here called Street Legends. It's a book written by Seth Ferranti. It has Supreme, Wayne Perry, Anthony Jones, Aaron Jones, Pistol Pete, and Boy George in here. If you want the book, you could go to Amazon. You could go to Amazon and get Street Legends. This is volume 1, I believe. All right, jumping straight back into Supreme. Learning the game. In Queens, the conflicting streets of private homes and grim city housing projects gave birth to another factor that proved pivotal in the young Supreme's life: the 7 Crowns. 7 Crowns was a 70s thing, Bing says. I was in 7 Crowns at the end. It was all on the south side, but different areas. It was all one gang. Everybody was in one gang before they started selling drugs. They had little gang fights, but no major killings, little brawls, shit like that. Regular shit, no gunplay. We came together against outsiders. According to legend, 7 Crowns formed in the early 70s and started out selling marijuana and then graduated to cocaine. In 1979, the street gangs split up, dividing up their turf into several territories and launching the careers of some of New York City's largest urban drug dealers, including Lorenzo Fat Cat Nichols, Howard Pappy Mason, Tommy Tony Montana, Mickens, the Corley brothers, Pretty Tony, Supreme, and his nephew Gerald Prince Miller. We were a little street gang when we were younger, Lance Furtado, Pretty Tony's brother, said. We grew up together. We lived on the same block. We knew each other since childhood, but we didn't carry guns. We believed in a beatdown. The future kingpins paid their dues, hustling, fighting, becoming men, and learning about the life and the drug game from their elders. Niggas was always hustling before they were selling drugs. They were robbing banks, burglarizing, shooting dice, stick up dudes, gambling. Queens was always fly niggas, get money niggas, Bing says. That's how it started. I've been knowing Preem since 1979. I met him on the block. I was supposed to be in high school, but I was outside hustling. Like the other 7 Crowns members, Preem gravitated toward the block, toward the action. The block was an area on 150th and 107th Avenue where all the hustlers congregated. It was called the block. It's where niggas hustled at. It was turf of the 7 Crowns. Pretty Tony, Cat, and the Corley brothers, Skinner, Danny, Early, different motherfuckers would be down there selling drugs, Bing says. Fat Cat had a store with a pool room. It was a hangout spot. Preem was more with Fat Cat at the time. They were good friends. They were real close back then. Preem had an eye for success even back then. By studying the older hustlers like Ronnie Bumps, who he guarded drugs and cash for at Southside at Southeast Queens at a Southeast Queens stash house, and hanging with his mentor Fat Cat. I don't know if Fat Cat was his mentor. I got to say that, but that's what's written in here. Hanging with his mentor Fat Cat. Supreme was learning the ropes of the game and laying the groundwork for his future empire. At one time, Cat and Preem were rivals, T says. Now remember, when I'm speaking to T, that's Terry Trice. But a mutual friend between both of them settled the rivalry and they became all right, securing a bond that would last throughout the 80s. A lot of brothers and sisters didn't like the idea that we hustled because it was contrary to the lessons. Supreme team member Knowledge said, but the 5% crew was known, but the 5% crew was now involved in drugs. 7 Crowns has split up and spawned the crews that would become legends. Pappy Mason was with Fat Cat. Pappy's crew was the Bebos. Cat had 150th Street. Wall Corley had 40 projects, and Supreme had Baisley projects. Tuck says, breaking it down, Supreme received his supply of coke and heroin from bigger dealers like Fat Cat. He became a meticulous organizer who formed strategic alliances intended to use force coldly and carefully in order to preserve power. Even as a kid, Supreme was sharp enough to put things in place, Terry Trice says, and the emergence of crack cocaine sparked a phenomenal crime wave in the 103rd District, and nowhere did criminals more boldly seize upon the opportunity that the emergence of crack afforded to those willing to break the law than in the south side of Jamaica, Queens. The Supreme Team was a street gang organized in the 1980s in the vicinity of the Baisley Projects in Jamaica, Queens, New York, by a group of teenagers who were members of a quasi-religious sect known as the Five Percenters. Under the leadership of Kenneth Supreme McGriff, with Gerald Prince Miller, his nephew, a second in command, the gang concentrated its criminal efforts on widespread distribution of crack cocaine, court records indicate. The Peace Guards became the Supreme Team. Under Supreme's direction, they took control of Baisley Projects, Baisley Park Houses, and Guy Arbrough Boulevard and 116th Avenue in Jamaica was one of the largest public housing developments in Queens at the time. The team sold small amounts of coke and heroin, hand to hand on the street corners at first. They were hustling, getting money, coming up, as they say, emulating the older hustlers on the block and trying to get theirs. The first member of the crew called themselves the Original Seed, and Preem was the first to see the benefits of emerging Latinos and blacks into one unified crew. My uncle is an exceptional and a natural-born leader. Ever since I can remember, Preem exemplified the qualities of a true gangster with a capital G, Prince says. He started the team like in '83, Bing says. A bunch of dudes that were 5%ers started getting into the drug game on 150th Street and Sofin Boulevard. Baisley was a hangout back then. It was remembered as a good time by all. The come up before all of the violence, before the crack epidemic, Bing remembers. Parties at the Roller Dome, Olympic Palace, the Disco Fever, the Empire Roller Skating Ring, and Red Pirate. Curtis Blow might come out and rap. You never know who you might see there. And Preem was sponsoring sports programs for kids way back in the day, helping the community's residents out when they were financially in trouble, funding turkey giveaways and bus trips for kids to amusement parks. Preem is not the bad guy he is made out to be, said Teddy, another Supreme Team member. He owned businesses before dudes were even thinking about it. He used to own neighborhood stores. People always hear the bad, but the good is never mentioned. Preem supported the hip-hop industry. From day one, when they were nothing more than dudes spitting rhymes down on the block, Preem used to book run DMC, the Beastie Boys, LL Cool J. Russell Simmons said they would have big parties. Every rapper played and he'd give every rapper $1,000. Now, this before them boys was making money. By 1985, Supreme was on the rise. The sports were bubbling, and Preem could cruise Baisley Projects in a black Mercedes, flashing muzzles of high-powered automatic weapons and waving thick wads of cash out the window. The violent crack trade was in full effect. From the impoverished section of South Jamaica to predominantly middle-class sections like St. Albans and Springfield Gardens, Preem had a piece of them all. The team was definitely rolling, and Preem was the man on the streets of South Jamaica. Supreme was held in high standing. He was a major figure at the time, Bing says. Everybody knew him everywhere he went. That's how well known Supreme was. I was like a brother to him back then. Street legend has it that Preem once came upon a group of cops down in the project surrounded by 50 or so more Supreme Team members who were hurling insults, bottles, and trash at the frightened police officers. With just a word and a wave of his hand, Supreme dispersed the mob, asked the officers if they were okay, and had them escorted out of the project safely. Supreme was the epitome of the classic gangster and a perfect gentleman to boot. Preem proved himself an able manager who knew how to work people and push their buttons. He was known as a charmer, quick to pass out wads of cash to those in need. He played the diplomat of his nephew's growing reputation as a shooter. Preem was sharper than the average kid, Terry Trice says. He had grown up experiences. His life could have been a success story had he not the first conviction came. With Preem's growing notoriety, it was only a matter of time before the police got the 411 on his activities. You had guys getting arrested, ending up right back on the streets, being said, so they were giving info about it. One cabbie who got caught with guns supposedly gave up info on our whereabouts. Certain cribs where we got guns and coke and money. Queens Narcotics Division had a series of photographs that were tacked to the wall in their office with the words Supreme Team inscribed over them, making Preem and his team prime targets. They set up surveillance on us and got a no-knock search warrant from the judge. Bing remembers. Me and Preem got arrested in September 1985. Now remember this. This may be what everybody is talking about on the internet when Preem said he went in 85 and it was a confidential informant. This book right here is written over 10 years ago. I've been home 15 years. They set up surveillance on us and got a no-knock warrant from the judge, Bing says. Me and Preem got arrested in September 1985 at an apartment in Cambridge Heights. They confiscated guns, drugs, money counting machines, assault rifles, vests, counterfeit money, bulletproof shirts, jackets, and coats. The official line differed slightly, but still the end result was the same. The cops said the premises were used to facilitate the sale, manufacture, transportation, and distribution of controlled substances. The investigation started because a stash house at 155-47 116th Avenue was robbed of 80 grand of Supreme's money. Preem complained loudly in the streets of the robbery, letting it be known that he was unhappy and that the money should be returned due to his reputation. But the wrong people heard about it and informed the cops. One informant told Sergeant Clyde Foster of Queens Narcotics of the robbery and Preem's plan to head back to his base at 166-16231 Street, 231st Street. With the address of the two stash house locations, Sergeant Foster moved quickly. In the morning of September 10, 1985, Foster got warrants from Queens Criminal Court Judge Stephen Fisher for both the 166-16 231st Street address and 155-47 116th Avenue address. I received information that allegedly a location at 231st Street in Linden Boulevard had been robbed of 80 grand in narcotics, and this house belonged to Supreme, Foster told the judge, who immediately signed the warrant, right? Be careful, the judge said, noting, there's an excellent chance Supreme would be present in the apartment. When cops busted into 166-16, 231st Street just after 9 p.m. on September 10, 1985, they found Supreme and his crew trying to dump coke into a sink and toilet. 8 pounds of heroin and coke were seized. 8 pounds means 4 bricks. Over $35,000 in cash, several rifles, 9 firearms, and numerous packing and cutting materials like scales, vials were found all over the premises. Preem was arrested on the spot, and cops figured that they had got their man and shut down the cutting and distribution operation in the process. Keep in mind what all this shit is going on with Preem, Prince, the documentary, and Bimmy. This is that era time right here, and it's quietly hidden in this book. In 1985, Preem had a state case. He got arrested in a house with drugs, Tuck says. Now, it's crazy that this book is talking about this 1985 stuff. Bing was arrested with Preem on that. They both got locked up. In Queens Court, though, Preem's wizard of an attorney, Robert Simmels, started working his magic. He was sentenced to 9 years to life, Tuck says. Preem was hit with drug and weapons charges by the city's special narcotics prosecutor. The sentence wasn't bad considering the harsh Rockefeller drug laws that New York had on the books at the time. But the back end of life must have stung. Bing got sentenced to 6 years to life to accompany his man upstate, like a real man. Just before they went to prison in 1985, Preem threw a birthday party for his nephew, Prince. We have plenty footage of this all over the internet, through hip hop, through history, and through street legends. Shout out to Prince. Shout out to Preem for that historic, monumental moment in hip hop time and gangsterism. Preem also handed over a prime drug dealing spot to his nephew and gave control of the team to Prince. Shout out to Prince, man. Some members of the team didn't like Prince's ascension, though, and outrage grew when Prince put together a security team to make sure he stayed in power while Preem was in prison. He figured it was his right. Preem being his uncle and all, it was evident to everyone on the team and in South Jamaica that Prince was the head parent. And 22 months later, Supreme's attorney worked some more magic. He got the appeal court to throw out the conviction on a technicality involving search warrants. And 22 months later, Supreme's attorney worked some more magic. He got the appeals court to throw out the conviction on a technicality involving search warrants. Preem got his conviction overturned and got out after only doing 22 months. He only served 22 months because an appeal court threw out the conviction, Tuck says. Tuck is spelled Tuck. And just like that, Supreme was back on the streets. I went to jail in 1985 with Preem. We ended up beating the case on appeal, Bing said. We were selling heroin and coke first, then we started selling crack. That shit was big back then. And the Supreme team was also big, growing in structure, notoriety. They surpassed Preem's and everyone else's expectation of them. Shout out to the Supreme team. I'm coming back with part 3 in a minute. Freedom Men. Shout out to Preem.